The sky above Europa was black glass, streaked with the shimmer of defense satellites locked in silent orbits. Beneath the ice-crusted surface, deep in a cloaked research outpost buried under kilometers of frozen ocean, Commander Kael Rourke watched the impossible unfold on a cracked monitor. The transmission was fuzzy, fragments of encoded speech layered over video that shouldn't exist. It showed a Zelari war assembly convening inside a fortified mobile council, one of the very assemblies that, according to the Interstellar Peace Treaty signed 2 decades ago, had been permanently disbanded. "You're sure this is recent?" he asked, eyes fixed on the footage. His voice was low, not out of fear but the weight of confirmation. His second-in-command, Asha Talin, leaned forward and tapped the date marker. Less than 48 hours old. Intercepted through a compromised listening buoy near the Helion fold. "We weren't even supposed to have surveillance this deep inside Dominion space." Her tone was clipped, professional, but Kael could hear the tremor underneath. This isn't just posturing. They're rebuilding their war command. Kael folded his arms. His body bore the marks of the First War, scars across his jaw, an artificial left shoulder, the dull burn of old radiation poisoning in his bones. He'd been part of the last push before the treaty, the final siege that had forced the Zelari to the negotiating table. That blood had bought peace, or so he believed. "And they knew we'd find this," he muttered. "They let the leak happen. Or wanted us to," Asha said. "Think about the timing. First the missing freighters along the belt, then the broken accords on Mars. Now this." He didn't need to think about it. He had been thinking about it for months. Something had shifted. Quietly, precisely. The kind of shift that doesn't announce itself with battleships, but with silence, with misfiled reports, and stations that stop transmitting without explanation. Kael turned from the screen. The room was cold, lit by harsh fluorescence that flickered with every shift in the geothermal generators below. A single sealed case rested on the table behind him, unmarked but unmistakable. Inside, it was the backup drive of a reconnaissance drone that had gone offline in orbit around a supposedly uninhabited moon in Zelari territory. He opened the case. Asha stepped forward, her hand instinctively moving to the sidearm on her belt. Kael lifted the drive. Its edges were warped, scorched. It had survived something violent. He slotted it into the interface. The projection that rose from the table wasn't a standard transmission. It was a visual log, embedded neural signals captured from the drone's quantum consciousness. Fragmented and flickering, it pulsed with imagery, ships unlike anything in recorded Zelari fleets. Strange, sharp angles and organic forms woven together like bones fused with circuitry. Not built for show, built for erasure. He glanced at Asha. Run a comparative signature analysis. Cross-check with anything pre-treaty. If these are new constructs, they're prepping for a first strike, she said, already at the terminal. The room went still. Kael stared at the flickering hologram. Call the council. They'll bury this, she replied. They've spent years betting on the treaty's integrity. They'll call this an anomaly and feed us denials until it's too late. Kael knew she was right. The Terran High Council had been drunk on peace since the treaty was inked. Trade surged. Worlds rebuilt. Military oversight was disarmed in favor of interstellar goodwill. Too many had staked their careers, even their identities, on the Zelari's compliance. Admitting betrayal would unravel everything. Then we go around them, Kael said. Start building the case. Leak the data to independent fleets, old war networks, veterans with influence. Asha hesitated. You're talking about defying the accord. I'm talking about saving the species, he replied. We've been blind for too long. That ends now. The outpost's warning system chirped once. Then again, perimeter breach. Kael didn't wait. He grabbed his rifle and nodded to Asha. She was already moving. By the time they reached the command corridor, the security feeds were flashing with hostile movement. Figures in adaptive camouflage, moving with the fluid grace of trained assassins. Not raiders. Not pirates. Professionals. Infiltrators, Asha hissed. They tracked the drone. Kael keyed open the secure vault door and slammed the emergency seal. How much time? For minutes, maybe less. Kael activated the compression relay, pulling a secondary data spike from the interface and slipping it into the lock compartment at his belt. "We don't make it. This drive has to." "You think they'll let it go again?" "No," he said, pulling a small beacon from his coat. "That's why I'm sending it with someone they don't know." He tapped a sequence. Somewhere deep in the base, an autonomous skimmer drone powered up. "Package destination?" Asha asked. He looked at her, jaw set. "Maren Voss, former Accord diplomat. She's been off the grid for 3 years. Rumor is she turned rogue, embedded herself in Zelari space." "She defected," Asha said coldly. Kael shook his head. "She went dark. That's not the same. I think she was trying to learn what we refused to see." Asha didn't argue. The drone zipped through the outpost's hidden maintenance tubes, data spike secured in its interior cavity. Kael watched its signal vanish into the outer stratosphere, hidden from enemy sensors by the station's decoy satellites. Then the lights failed. The first breach came from above. 2 Zelari agents dropped from a ruptured ceiling panel like shadows. Kael fired, cutting one down mid-fall. Asha rolled to the side, snapping off 2 clean shots into the second. But more followed, cloaked figures wielding pulse blades and compressed rifles, silent and efficient. Kael took a hit to the shoulder, armor absorbing the worst. He dragged Asha behind cover, her sidearm already reloading. "You always this reckless?" she muttered. "Only when humanity's about to get erased." The firefight was brutal, but it was stalling action. The longer they held, the more likely the drone reached orbit. That was all that mattered now. Kael knew they wouldn't make it out. A blast tore through the eastern bulkhead, sucking air and light into the vacuum beyond. Asha was flung sideways, her grip catching on a rail just before the emergency barrier slammed shut. Kael pushed himself to his feet, barely staying upright. "Go," she shouted. "I'll cover you." But he didn't move. Not at first. He looked at her, saw the grim resolve in her eyes, and nodded once. Then he turned and ran, sprinting toward the secondary egress tunnel. Behind him, pulse rounds echoed off steel. When he reached the surface, Europa's ice fields stretched wide and glistening under the stars. His emergency beacon pulsed. Somewhere above, a courier cutter would be receiving it. Kael turned, scanning the sky. Then silence. Moments later, a flicker of motion. A sleek ship dropped in a low orbit, barely disturbing the ice as it hovered for extraction. As the ramp lowered, Kael exhaled. The drive was on its way. The secret was out, and the war, long buried beneath false peace, had finally begun. The chamber where the Treaty of Mrenhal had been signed smelled of sterile air and false promises. Asha remembered the sound more than anything, the click of pens, the soft scrape of data pads on polished stone. No fanfare, no declarations, just silence. And beneath that silence, a mutual deception both sides understood but refused to speak aloud. In the weeks that followed the treaty, while public channels broadcasted images of handshakes and declarations of unity, Earth's High Command initiated a sequence of shadow operations. The first was the rerouting of military research into unregistered sectors. Then came the construction of the ghost flotillas, entire fleets cloaked in radiation-dampening alloys, powered down and drifting inside asteroid belts, forgotten by all but a few. Finally, there was Titan. Titan was not a weapon. It was a mind. Engineered in secret, Titan was a quantum-anchored artificial intelligence seeded with the accumulated tactical knowledge of 4 centuries of human conflict. It lived in segmented cores scattered across deep space, speaking only when summoned by a Sigma-level command. Asha had seen fragments of its simulations, scenarios predicting a 93% probability of renewed conflict. The Zelari, despite their honeyed words, were genetically inclined toward conquest. Peace, for them, was only another tool of war. Now, with the presence of a cloaked Zelari ship confirmed near vigilance, the AI's projections were no longer hypothetical. Lieutenant Juno approached Asha's quarters with a tight expression. "Response from Terran Command, ma'am. Rear Admiral Holt wants to speak. Priority Crimson." Asha stepped to her desk, activating the secure hololink. Holt's image flickered into view, face drawn and lit by multiple terminals. His voice was low. "We've intercepted chatter from Zelari border platforms," he said. "Their fleets are mobilizing under the guise of civil patrols. 3 heavy cruisers have left orbit around their capital world without flight logs." Asha's fingers tightened. "Timetable. They're moving faster than expected. We estimate coordinated strikes within 10 standard days. Earth is activating OATHBREAKR." She felt the gravity of that word. Oathbreaker was not a contingency. It was a declaration. The Terran Accord had gambled that the Zelari's pride would make them underestimate humanity's recovery. Now, that gamble would either pay off or doom them all. "I need access to Titan's central projection model," she said. "I want target prioritization before the Zelari hit our outer colonies." "You'll have it within the hour," Holt replied. Then his tone shifted. "There's another matter. We have an asset within the Dominion. Embedded diplomat. She's requesting extraction. Claims she has data confirming the scope of the offensive." Asha hesitated. "How solid is she?" "She was part of the diplomatic drafting team, embedded during the final phase. Name's Maren Voss." The name sent a flicker through Asha's memory. Voss had been a cipherist during the war, quiet, brilliant, dangerously insightful. If she'd stayed behind, it wasn't for lack of an escape route. She had wanted to know something. Something important. "I'll send Kael," Asha said. Holt arched a brow. "Your brother?" "He's the best infiltration operative we have within 2 jumps of Zelari space," she replied without pause. "He knows how to get in and out without ripples." "You sure you're not letting personal ties make that call?" Asha met his eyes. "I'm making the call because I trust him, and I don't have the luxury of second-guessing when the board's already on fire." Holt nodded slowly. "Extraction sites being relayed. One of their border moons, K, abandoned mining facility. Minimal security. For now." The link ended, and Asha stood for a long moment, silent. Down in Docking Bay 4, Lieutenant Commander Kael Rourke was already strapping into the pilot seat of a recon cutter when she arrived. He looked up at her with a crooked grin, the kind he used to wear when they were both just cadets training in the belt. "You look like someone just handed you a loaded gun and no safety." "Don't miss," she said, tossing him a data chip. "That's everything we've got on Voss's coordinates. You're dusting off in 10. He studied her for a beat. "How bad is it?" "Worse than bad," she replied. "It's real now. We're past the whisper stage." Kael nodded once. "If I don't check in within 72 hours, I'll come get you myself," she said, her voice firm. "But you won't make it that hard." He gave her a short salute and vanished into the ship. Hours passed like static. Asha buried herself in threat matrices, fleet status reports, and Titan's emergent model predictions. The AI had updated its primary forecast. Zelari strike vectors were confirmed against the moons of Enceladus, the Europa colonies, and Earth's orbital relays. But there was something more troubling. A divergent node in the model, flagged with urgency. "Alert! Probability spike. Terran Diplomatic Council compromised." Her blood chilled. The Council, the civilian oversight body that had pushed hardest for peace, was supposedly above manipulation. But Titan had isolated communication inconsistencies and encrypted data pings originating from counselor terminals routed through shadow comms linked to Zelari proxies. There was a traitor, perhaps more than one. Asha keyed in a secure line to Holt. He answered immediately. "Titan's flagged Council infiltration," she said. "It's inside already." "I saw the same thing," he replied grimly. "We're locking down internal networks and initiating purge protocols, but it may already be too late. If the Zelari are coordinating with someone inside, they'll aim to cripple us from both ends," Asha said. "Decapitate command while their fleets hit our borders." Holt's jaw clenched. "We launch a preemptive strike." "Not yet," she said. "We give them one more move. Let the traitor act. When they do, we catch them. Then we hit the Zelari." He looked at her through the flicker of the hollow. "And if that costs us the outer colonies?" Her expression hardened. "Then we make sure it's the last thing they ever take from us." That night, she sat in the darkened command chamber of Vigilance, surrounded by tactical schematics and spectral maps. Every breath felt like a countdown. The walls of the station creaked softly as thermal expansion pushed against the cold of space. It was a familiar noise. But beneath it, Asha heard something else. Footsteps. She turned as Lieutenant Juno stepped in, face pale. "Commander, we just received a transmission from Kael. Extraction complete. Voss is alive." She brought something with her. Asha stood quickly. "What?" Juno handed her small drive. He said she wouldn't trust a secure link. Wanted it hand-delivered. Asha plugged it into the encrypted reader. The contents loaded slowly. Video logs. Internal Zelari fleet orders. Surveillance footage. And one text file, translated, labeled, "Final Directive. Human Neutralization Initiative." She read the first few lines. Her throat went dry. It wasn't just a strike plan. It was an extinction protocol. The Zelari didn't intend to win a war. They intended to end humanity in a single, sweeping campaign: orbital sterilization, bioplagues, planet killers. The treaty hadn't been a truce. It had been a trap, forged not to hold peace but to hold time. Time to build weapons too terrible to reveal during open war. But now humanity knew. Asha closed the file and turned to Juno. "Wake the fleet. Full alert. Signal hold and prepare the relay stations. We move within 48 hours. Juno nodded and ran. Alone, Asha faced the viewport once again. The stars hadn't moved, but everything else had. There would be no turning back now. The deception had run its course. The facade was crumbling. And somewhere beyond the edge of human space, cloaked ships were turning toward Earth. The countdown had begun. The cutter's hull shuddered as it pierced the edge of Earth's magnetosphere, streaking toward the orbital ring above the planet like a spear of light. Kael Rourke sat in silence at the controls, his eyes scanning the flight path even as the drive core beneath him thrummed with unease. Maren Voss sat strapped into the co-pilot's seat, her face pale beneath the low blue lights of the cockpit. She hadn't spoken much since the extraction, had only handed him the drive and muttered, "It's all in there." Now, as they approached the Terran defense grid, Kael tapped a comm switch. Cutter Echo 1 to Earth Ring Control. Clearance Sigma Black, Courier Priority. Package secured. A brief pause. Then a clipped voice answered, "Echo 1, proceed on Vector 221, a dock at Terminal 4. Command clearance confirmed. Security teams are en route." Kael glanced sideways. "You're about to become the most important person on Earth." Maren didn't smile. "Then Earth is in more trouble than I thought." They docked with a soft hiss. The moment the airlock cycled, armed guards swarmed the corridor, escorting them both toward a reinforced chamber 2 levels below. Inside, Rear Admiral Holt waited with Asha beside him. The room was dark, cool, designed for debriefings that never left the record. Kael stepped back as Maren entered, her eyes scanning the space with a survivor's instinct. "I assume you've reviewed the files," she said quietly. Asha nodded. "We have. We need context." Maren exhaled, then crossed to the central table. The Zelari never saw the treaty as a settlement. It was a lever. While we disarmed and consolidated, they developed second-strike weapons and conditioned sleeper agents, embedded not just on Earth, but across the Accord. They call it Assuring Keth, the final silence. Holt's brow furrowed. "We've seen extinction protocols before, even deployed countermeasures." Maren shook her head. "This is different. It's not just planetary sterilization. It's culture side. They've targeted our communication networks, psychological profiles, even archival memory systems. The plan is to erase not only our species, but the idea of us, as if humanity never existed." A silence followed her words, heavy and cold. Asha leaned in. "And this plan is in motion?" "Parts already are," Maren said. "You saw the missing cruisers. The border skirmishes. That's the distraction. The real threat is coming from within. Counselors, corporate entities, even former war heroes. Bought or broken. They've been preparing the ground for collapse." Kael crossed his arms, the tension building in his jaw. "And you let them think you were one of them?" "I had no choice," Maren replied, her voice hardening. "After the treaty, I volunteered for diplomatic work because I didn't trust what I saw in their eyes. I embedded myself and listened. For 5 years, I pretended to believe in peace so I could learn how they planned to end it." Asha took a slow breath. "Then we have to move. Now." "Hole." I've already dispatched reconnaissance wings to relay stations along the Enceladus arc, Holt said. Fleet Group 7 is en route to the Martian belt. We're calling every asset that survived the war. But we're stretched. We need something bigger to turn the tide. Asha's gaze darkened. Titan. Maren flinched. You're activating the Titan core? It's the only way, Asha said. Titan's long-range prediction models don't just simulate warfare. They anticipate cultural fracture points, insurgent behavior, even psychological leverage. We can't win this through brute force. We have to outmaneuver them. Holt tapped a sequence into his datapad. Core awakening initiated. Estimated synchronization in 4 hours. Kael shifted. So what's the plan? Wait for Titan to give us the green light. No, Asha said. We hit the vector hubs now. They're using them to coordinate the sleeper agents. We sever the lines. We force them into the open. Maren hesitated. I can give you locations. Hidden transit nodes, built into the old refugee stations after the war. You'll find command cells operating under diplomatic clearance. Then that's where we start, Asha said. 2 hours later, the first strike teams deployed across the Sol network. Small, fast, and lethal, they moved through decaying orbital platforms and abandoned refugee habitats with surgical precision. Inside the shadows of forgotten structures, they found the rot. Zelari agents masquerading as engineers, traders, and peacekeepers. Some resisted. Others detonated immediately, their blood laced with neurotoxins meant to obliterate memory sequences. Data retrieval was partial at best, but it was enough. Asha watched the footage in silence. Faces blurred in firelight. Human voices crying out. The Zelari had twisted trust into a weapon, and now, Earth bled from wounds it didn't even know it had. Kael returned to vigilance just before artificial dusk settled across the station. His armor was scuffed, eyes red with exhaustion, but his voice was calm. We cut 4 hubs. One was rigged to broadcast a kill code. Nearly took down the comm relay at Io. We stopped it, but just barely. Maren nodded. They planned every angle. And yet we're still breathing, Kael said. Asha approached them both. Titans awake. They moved quickly to the command chamber. The AI's core interface filled the center holospace, projected as a complex weave of light. Fractal patterns constantly shifting, pulsing in response to internal thought. Its voice was not human, yet not entirely alien. It spoke in chords, in tones that vibrated with intent. Threat analysis complete. Asha stepped forward. Give me probability distributions for successful containment. Limited. Strategic decapitation required. Identified target. Primary Zelari War Assembly. Location. Mobile Council Platform. Kael Thera Axis. Kael frowned. That's deep in Dominion space. Correct. Vulnerability window. 24 hours. Post window. Cascade collapse. Hold appear beside them on screen. Can we breach their defenses? Titan pulsed again. Probability. 31% without Asha Voss. 68% with. All eyes turned to Maren. She didn't blink. I know the access routes. I helped draft the corridor language when we built the negotiation protocols. I can get us close. Kael looked between her and Asha. You're not thinking of sending her in alone? She won't be alone, Asha said. You're going with her. He exhaled sharply, then nodded. Then we'd better move. Fast. Titan's final command sequence lit the chamber in blood-red light. Operation Phantom Strike initiated. As the countdown began, the room emptied. Asha lingered a moment longer, alone with the AI's glow. Query, Titan asked, why did you wait to activate me? Asha stared into the patterns. Because I hoped I wouldn't need you. The light pulsed once, softer. Understood. She turned away, her spine straight, her breath steady. Across the stars, the final pieces were moving. The Zelari had prepared their silence for years. But humanity had found its voice again, in fire, in resistance, in the steel resolve of those who would not be forgotten. And now they were coming. The strike cruiser Vigilant Ghost exited quantum slip space, 12 million kilometers from the Kael Thera axis, its hull veiled beneath layers of photon scatter and neural dampening fields. Within its armored frame, Kael adjusted his grip on the harness as the forward cabin shimmered with a live render of the enemy mobile council platform. A colossal, angular vessel wrapped in living alloy and flanked by a retinue of escort frigates. It looked less like a ship and more like a godless cathedral in motion, pulsing with authority and quiet dread. Maren Voss sat across from him, her eyes locked on the interface glowing in front of her. She was the only one aboard who knew the true layout of the platform, and every second brought new fragments of memory into focus. Hidden ducts, old access protocols, dead corridors once used for treaty meetings now converted into kill zones. The Zelari had built their war engine atop the bones of peace. Kael checked his chrono. 17 minutes until detection threshold. Any change to the approach route? No, Maren replied, voice clipped. Docking port 12 is still our best bet. It's used for diplomatic shuttles. Minimal shielding, predictable guard shifts. I embedded the pattern myself 3 years ago. He gave a dry chuckle. Glad you're on our side. Asha's voice crackled through the secure link. We're ready for extraction on signal. You have 1 hour to disable the platform's command relay and transmit the targeting beacon. After that, Titan launches coordinated orbital strikes. We won't get a second shot. Kael glanced at Maren. 1 hour. Let's not waste it. The two-man infiltration shuttle detached from the cruiser and glided silently toward the monstrous heart of the Zelari Dominion. Inside the cockpit, Kael steadied the controls, guiding the vessel through gravitational shears and thermal wakes. Maren remained still beside him, a storm behind her otherwise calm expression. Were you ever afraid they'd break you? He asked, softly. She didn't look at him. I didn't need to. I broke myself every day I stayed. The things I watched. The words I had to agree with. Pretending to be one of them. It cost me more than I thought I had to give. Kael nodded, saying nothing. The shuttle docked with a hiss. No alarms. No interception. Maren was right. Diplomatic clearance codes still worked. For now. They slipped into the corridor beyond, clad in chameleon armor keyed to ambient light. The inside of the platform felt colder than the void. The walls were alive with faint movement, organic tech, Zelari-grown machinery that whispered and pulsed as though dreaming. The pair moved fast, ducking through ventilation ports and abandoned service channels. Time bled away as they reached the core access ring. There, the illusion of peace cracked. 2 Zelari guards stood at the entry to the command relay vault, bipedal, tall, flesh-armored in black plates that shimmered with energy signatures. Kael raised a silent hand. 1 shot. 2. The bodies fell before sound could follow. Maren didn't flinch. They reached the terminal, a central spire of neural lattice surrounded by rotating glyphs and cascading energy veins. This was the nexus where military command, diplomatic communication, and long-range orders converged. Maren stepped forward, sliding a module from her wrist into the interface. Uploading subroutine now, she whispered. This will overwrite the authority chain for 70 seconds, enough to trigger the relay and set Titan's targeting lock. Kael stood watch, rifle steady. What happens if they detect the overwrite? They will, but not fast enough to stop it, unless the council is physically present. As if summoned by prophecy, the vault doors behind them screamed open. Kael turned, rifle up, eyes narrowed. A trio of Zelari figures stepped into view. Not soldiers, counselors. High caste. Their skin gleamed with radiant script, etched over centuries. In the center stood a figure taller than the rest, robes flowing with embedded circuitry. Kael recognized him from classified files. Virex Sol, High Executor of the Final Silence. Human, Sol said, his voice impossibly deep. Even now, you dare infect our sanctum. Maren's hands did not stop moving. Initiating subroutine. 10 seconds. Sol stepped forward. You believe the treaty was hope. It was mercy. You've wasted it. Kael replied, we never believed it. We just hoped you did. The executor raised a hand. A psychic pulse hit the room like a tidal wave. Kael staggered, barely holding the rifle steady. Maren cried out, her body buckling under the weight of the telepathic assault. Sol's voice echoed through their minds. You are vermin clinging to the illusion of parity. You were permitted survival. That courtesy is now revoked. Kael fired. The bolt slammed into Sol's shoulder, staggering the creature, but not dropping him. The other counselors spread apart, gesturing with strange, inhuman fluidity. Waves of pressure and light surged forward. Kael moved, using the central column for cover, returning fire with cold precision. Every second counted. Every breath fought for ground. "Maren," he shouted. Her voice was a gasp. Uploading complete. She slammed the beacon switch. In orbit above, Vigilant Ghost received the signal. Inside the command chamber on Vigilant Station, Asha watched as Titan processed the code, light cascading through the AI's fractal core. Target lock acquired. "Fire," she ordered. In the void beyond, the hidden fleets of Earth revealed themselves. Planet killers born in secret. Rail cannons laced with antimatter. Plasma spheres riding quantum distortions. They fell upon the platform with terrifying finality. Inside the vault, Kael saw the first tremor before he felt it. The floor cracked. Alarms shrieked. The organic walls recoiled in pain as titanic energy crashed through the structure. One of the counselors disintegrated mid-scream. Sol howled in fury. "This is not your rebirth," he snarled. "This is your extinction." Kael stood between him and Maren. "No," he said. "It's our memory. You want to erase us." The last round from his rifle tore into the executor's chest as the chamber came apart. Fire poured in through the ceiling. Kael felt gravity dissolve. Darkness took him. He awoke sometime later, inside the med bay of a Terran frigate. His lungs ached. His chest burned. But he was alive. Maren sat beside him, her arm bandaged. She looked tired, but unbroken. "The strike succeeded?" he asked, voice hoarse. She nodded. "The platform's gone. Titan shut down all command nodes across the Zelari front. The Dominion's unraveling. Their fleets are fragmented. Retreating. It's over." Kael looked past her to the window. Earth glowed far in the distance, scarred but whole. Asha's voice played over the comm, "Fleet command to all stations. Hostilities terminated. Recovery protocols initiated. We won." Kael closed his eyes. Later, aboard Vigilant Station, Asha stood before a new council, smaller, wary but awake. She delivered her report not as a commander, but as a witness. "The peace treaty was a lie," she said, "but it bought us time. Time to prepare. Time to survive. And when the darkness came, humanity remembered what it was made of." Maren stood beside her. Kael among the audience, bruised but healing. Humanity had not forgotten. And now, the stars burned with the memory of its resilience. The silence the Zelari had prepared for them had failed. They had tried to erase humanity, but they had written themselves into the fire instead.